All right, so we've been keeping up with the ongoing resurgence of the American labor movement over the last couple of months and years, and one of the best corporations that we have seen in terms of successful unionization attempts has been Starbucks. They've literally had dozens and dozens of stores just over the last couple of months that have successfully filed and held elections to have their unions, and so you absolutely love to see it, but at the same time, we still have to deal with this ongoing effort by the corporate wing of Starbucks to absolutely crush and demolish these unionization attempts, and even once they are successfully won, to then proceed with stalling and not negotiating in good faith, and basically doing every single thing that they possibly can in order to prevent their workers from getting to the point where they can actually collectively bargain for better benefits, better pay, better working conditions, etc. And we kind of talk about this as if it's something that is intrinsic to capitalism, and of course it is intrinsic to capitalism, but once in a while you get CEOs and other executives and ghouls who basically just come out and say the quiet part out loud and make it really easy for us to show people exactly what their motivations are in a moment like this. So here from More Perfect Union, we have a live interview that was done by New York Times of the Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz, who basically just came out and said that he is going to be violating labor law and not negotiating in good faith with these dozens and dozens of successful unionization attempts. So let's go ahead and watch this clip.
To demonstrate to our people they can trust us, and we have to show up.
Could you ever see doing that and embracing the union as part of it?
No.
Why not?
The primary reason is we are in business to exceed the expectations of our customers. 100 million people come into Starbucks. The customer experience will be significantly challenged and less than if a third party is integrated into our business. And
because they're not acting in good faith.
Because we have a different view. And Aaron, I don't want to spend the entire time with you. Come on.
But I just want to understand it, because there's headlines every day about this at Starbucks, but this is everywhere else as well, Amazon and others. But I think there's a focus on is there a way for companies and unions potentially to work together? And given how progressive your company has been, there's lots of people who look at Starbucks. I was looking at a headline: Starbucks is a latte liberal until it's not.
Well,
it's a mean headline. The National Review, by the way. Not the New York Times, but I say it.
Yeah.
I only say it because I think that there's a question: is there a way for both to live in harmony?
My belief is that we have built a company that is centered around exceeding the expectations of our people and our customers, and that is the vision we have for the future.
Okay, so listen, he didn't come outright and literally say we do not plan to negotiate in good faith, but basically that's what he was just saying there, right? He's saying there is no possible way that Starbucks, as a capitalist enterprise that has no interest whatsoever other than serving their shareholders, their executives, etc., that there is no way that they could possibly work in harmony with a potential union. And that says a lot. Fundamentally, it says a lot just about the capitalist structure. Of course, it shouldn't be surprising to anybody that the head of a billion-dollar corporation is not going to be too happy about his workers getting together and collectively deciding that they are going to demand better working conditions, better pay, better benefits, etc., because that is money that is going to be coming out of the paychecks of CEOs and executives like Howard Schultz. So obviously, if you understand the incentive structure of capitalism, if you understand the authoritarian nature of capitalism, of course they want absolutely nothing to do with installing some semblance of democracy within the workplace. So there shouldn't really be any surprises here, but again, it is nice once in a while to have some of these CEOs basically come out and say the quiet part out loud, which also, by the way, him confirming that they'd have no plans whatsoever to come to the table and start negotiating in good faith with these different unions. Part of that, is just a direct violation of labor laws. So just to read it straight out from the National Labor Relations Board here, they say the National Labor Relations Board Act, or the National Labor Relations Act, gives you the right to bargain collectively with your employer through a representative that you and your coworkers choose. What does that mean? And it says your union and employer must bargain in good faith about wages, hours, and other terms and conditions of employment until they agree on a labor contract or reach a standoff or impasse. If negotiations reach an impasse, an employer can impose terms and conditions so long as it offers them to the union before the impasse was reached, etc., etc. But the key part of this, obviously, is that your employer must bargain in good faith. And what he was just saying there is that they're not going to be bargaining in good faith. They're going to constantly stall. They're going to try to put forward bogus and bullshit legal challenges to these unionization efforts. They're going to continue firing workers who are attempting to unionize. They're going to continue doing the anti-union propaganda on a regular basis, the captive audience meeting, the intimidation that workers are feeling on a day-to-day basis when Starbucks, the CEO, sends out a bunch of corporate leaders to go and again basically try to intimidate these workers against joining these unions. All of those other tactics, most of which either borderline illegal or straight up illegal, those are all going to continue. And obviously this guy's not going to come to the table and actually recognize and negotiate with these unions for entirely different reasons than what he was trying to say there, right? His idea is that, we don't want to hurt customer experience. Why? What does that even mean in the context of a union forming? You're saying that because your workers might demand fair pay for their hours, that they might demand fair working conditions and benefits, etc., that would somehow diminish customer experience? How? I mean, what is your correlative structure there that you're trying to point out? He doesn't have any evidence for that whatsoever. If anything, I would make the argument that having some sort of a democratic check on the authoritarian structure of capitalism would give workers at every different location the ability to actually, have some nuanced discussions about what is best for their particular workplace. How would they be able to better serve the customers, as he was just pointing out there. So, there's no situation in which authoritarian trumps democracy, especially when it comes to the workplace. And I think all of the different arguments he was putting forward there were entirely bullshit. Another one that he said was that the union somehow represents a third party that is going to come in and get in between our precious relationship with our workers. I mean, again, entirely bullshit. A union is not a third party. It is literally comprised of the workers themselves, and they get to democratically decide who they want to have as their representatives. That's what a union is. So this is, typical standard capitalist talking points, trying to propagandize people against joining the union, and then once they are unsuccessful in a lot of those propaganda efforts, turning around and using the same exact typical standard capitalist efforts in order to prevent that union from actually getting the recognition that it not only politically and morally deserves, but also legally deserves, as defined by the law that we were just getting into there. But again, unfortunately, this is not anything new. This idea that CEOs, especially the Starbucks one, that they are not going to come to the table and negotiate in good faith, that they are going to continue with their illegal union busting practices. But I'll link this down below if you want to get a more firm idea in terms of some of the tactics they've been using. They say here from Huffington Post, Starbucks union busting was so bad it should be forced to bargain, say labor officials. And they say a regional director with the labor board says Starbucks broke so many laws that it irreparably tainted the union election process in Western New York. And I think that they're specifically referencing the Buffalo Starbucks that attempted to unionize. I mean, they were literally firing workers, again, trying to use those intimidation tactics, using anti-union propaganda on a regular basis. All of the different tactics that are either borderline illegal or straight up illegal, they're going to continue doing this as they have been up until the point where the National Labor Relations Board, which has been somewhat better under Biden than it has been under previous presidents, but still remains under-resourced and underfunded, but they're basically going to do everything that they can until the NLRB comes, metaphorically knocking at their doors and, actually holding them legally accountable for their illegal union busting practices. And another part of this that you got to recognize in terms of how our entire structure of our government has always been favored on the side of capital is that, the punishments for violating labor laws, specifically in relation to union busting tactics, it's almost nothing. I mean, if a corporation, if a CEO has to do this internal calculus and they say, well, I could prevent a union from forming, thereby preventing future increased pay, better benefits, working conditions, etc. I'll save a lot of money on that, and obviously I'm going to end up saving more money on that than I would be in paying some sort of a fine to the government or to the National Labor Relations Board for violating those laws. So in their internal, capitalist calculus, this is worth it for them to violate labor laws. So it says something, again, broader about how we are structuring the National Labor Relations Board and labor relations more generally in this country, that it is always going to be to the benefit of capital, and workers are always going to have to be pushing, that giant boulder up a mountain in order to get even a modicum of democratic say in their workplace. So, it's always going to be an uphill battle, but fortunately, when it comes to the specifics of Starbucks, it's an uphill battle that they are absolutely crushing and demolishing, and this is probably why CEOs like Howard Schultz are absolutely shitting and pissing their pants. advance, because they say here from More Perfect Union, and they have this whole map of where these Starbucks unionization efforts have been successful, but they say so far 146 Starbucks stores in 30 states have won union elections, and just 21 stores have lost their elections. So, I don't know what the percentage is on this, but 146 to 21 is absolutely insane, especially given, again, the disproportionate power that capital wields in this country, even through the government. So, it's absolutely amazing. You'd love to see this, but in a general sense, again, nothing but solidarity with these workers. I hope that this wave continues, not just at Starbucks, but at many other corporations as well, because this is how you actually win political power, right? We can't just be sitting on our asses, showing up to vote every 2 to 4 years for Democrats or Republicans. Neither party is ever going to bail us out of the horrendous situation that we are in right now in this country. It all is going to come down to labor power, and then using that labor militancy, using organizing at a local level, at a community level, in order to then apply the political pressure and make demands instead of constantly begging for crumbs that we barely ever see the light of day on. So, at the end of the day, another great message in terms of why we should support unions in this country, but Starbucks seems to be one of the corporations that is, or one of the, groups of workers that is actually leading the charge in getting a lot of that political power that is desperately needed in a moment like this. But just to really drive it home here, and I honestly just thought that this aspect of this story was funny, but just to show you exactly how little Democrats and Republicans give a shit about protecting workers' rights in this country. This motherfucker Howard Schultz, the guy who is just not only deploying all of the various illegal union busting tactics, but also openly coming out and saying he's not going to be negotiating in good faith with this union. This guy was literally Hillary Clinton's pick to be the Secretary of Labor. Okay, so again, you're never going to be able to count on Democrats. You're never going to be able to count on either party in this broken, dysfunctional, corrupt two-party system to bail us out of this situation. If you want higher wages, if you want more stability in your life, if you want better working conditions, if you want just basic human dignity and being fairly rewarded for what your labor is producing, then unions are the first step in that process. Obviously, as a socialist, I would love to have some, utopian socialist revolution where we, round up these capitalists and do what we will with them, but unfortunately, not the reality that we live in. And unions are just going to be that first stepping stone in actually harnessing some of that political power in order to achieve material benefits to all of our lives.